You are listening to an exclusive on Pod Hub Network. Your city, your podcast.
To the delight of this crowd, McClendon marches down the dugout steps with first base.
McCutcheon's throw. The runner breaks to the plate. Here's the throw. Wow. It is out. The Buccos win. That ball's hit well to left center field. Back toward the track. And that ball is gone.
You are listening to the North Shore 9 podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Also, make sure to watch NS9 Live every Thursday on Twitch and help support by becoming a patron. Let's go Bucks!
Yo, yo, yo. Good morning. Welcome to Starbucks. I'm your host, Anthony DiNardo. With me this morning on this Tuesday, on time once again, Jim Rosati. What's up, Jim?
Good morning. It's good to be back in my own house.
I was going to say, it's good to be actually back on for you.
Right.
You had an interesting week. Why don't you tell us a little bit?
Yeah. So,
as you're barely awake.
that was crazy. Yeah. So like Wednesday of last week, I flew to Chicago to hit up the Sports Card National Convention for a day. So that was pretty fun. So if anybody went up to that was cool. I saw a couple people on Twitter who went. And then Thursday through Sunday, I went to a bachelor party in New Orleans. So DiNardo, you've been to New Orleans, right?
I actually have not.
Oh my God. It's like one of my favorite cities, but it's one of my least favorite cities ever. Like first off, it's so dirty, like so dirty and trashy, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun. So,
right.
There wasn't a whole lot of sleeping going on in New Orleans this weekend. The flight back was a disaster. Like it took me a day and a half to get home from New Orleans just because flights kept getting canceled. So yeah, it was an ordeal. It was a rough weekend.
So I was informed that you were stuck in Dallas, right? And then you decided to go just check out a Rangers game.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was stuck. My flight out of Dallas, my connecting flight out of Dallas got canceled. So we stayed the day in Dallas. A couple of us went to a Rangers Mariners game on Sunday. So it's my first time in the new ballpark down there in Arlington. I usually don't like indoor stadiums very much, but it was really good. Tickets were super affordable. We got tickets for $10. We were first row, upper level. Yeah, it was a good game. I would recommend checking out the stadium. It was a nice ballpark.
There you go. So just get a connecting flight, from Dallas, and you'll go ahead and be able to check out a game when your flight gets canceled.
There you go.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you're home. I'm glad you got a little bit of sleep. And here we are. So, and what a week to have a bachelor party. Because, man, oh man, Jim, did a lot of stuff happen last week, and you weren't even here for it. So
yeah,
we're definitely going to talk some trade deadline today. We'll give our thoughts. I mean, obviously Tyler and I came on Thursday, but that was before the next flurry of trades. And then I think you and I will kind of talk about, the rest of the year, the outlook of this team and such. So I guess let's kind of get into it. Now, we never got your actual thoughts on the Adam. Oh no, we did, because we did a Starbucks last week.
Yeah, we did a Starbucks for that.
Right. So I guess the last thing we heard of was Frazier. So then I guess we'll move on from there. So after that, the Clay Holmes trade happened, and then Tyler Anderson happened. So why don't you give us your little takes on those two trades?
Yeah, so when it comes to the Clay Holmes trade, not really somebody I was expecting to be moved, and the fact that they actually got like real life prospects for him was pretty incredible. Um, I mean, Hoy Park seems like someone who can at least be maybe like a utility guy. I'd like to see him play more, and we'll talk about that more kind of when we get to, who we want to see the rest of the year. But this guy has done nothing but hit at pretty much every level that he's been at. So I feel like that's a nice return, just to kind of see what we have. Again, he was crushing the ball in AAA this year. Just got his first major league hit the other day. He was called up about 3 days ago. So hopefully we see more of him. But yeah, if you look at his stats, DiNardo, everywhere he's played, he's hit. So especially in AAA this year, just been crushing the ball. So
right,
good to see him there. The other guy in that trade too seems to be pretty interesting as well. Diego Castillo, middle infielder, AA. It's wrong, Diego Castillo. There's two Diego Castillos apparently in baseball.
Of course.
But
well, as long
still
as
relatively young.
Like
still relatively young. I mean, he's 23, so it may be a little old for AA. I mean, he's someone who's going to have to, he's still a prospect, and he's hitting the ball really well in AA this year. So, I was impressed with just the return of anything for Clay Holmes. Like, I would have thought Clay Holmes would have been a DFA candidate, right?
Right.
And instead, they were able to add 2 players to this organization who could potentially help the team down the road.
So I want to talk about it a little bit more today too, because that's literally like you're hitting the nail on the head there. So when we talked about the whole Crick situation, and like, I understand it's Crick and he's not in the future, and we had that debate, but again, my biggest thing was like, why'd the finger stop on Crick? Like, why was it Crick and not somebody else? And in my head, like, Clay Holmes almost was that fit. Like, it could be Clay Holmes that got DFA'd instead of Kyle Crick. And I would have been like, well, that makes sense. So here's a guy that I think that could have got DFA'd. You just mentioned he was a candidate of being DFA'd. And the Pirates traded him to the Yankees who are a contending team, apparently. And like you mentioned, got 2 guys back. One being a true prospect to a degree. Like in Fangraphs, Diego Castillo slides at the number 23rd prospect for the Pirates. Park is older. We don't know. Like, he's not really so much a prospect per se, but he's an intriguing bat right now because of like the improvements he had this year as well. I want to see him. So you're absolutely right. I mean, the fact that they flipped him and got these 2 guys is to me is pretty impressive. So we'll move on to Tyler Anderson. So Tyler Anderson was traded to the Phillies, apparently, until he wasn't. And then he was traded to the Mariners at like 12:50 at night. The packages seem to be very similar to a degree. So again, let's go ahead. Give us your take on Tyler Anderson now in that return.
Yeah, that was interesting. So traded to the Phillies earlier in the day. We even find out who the 2 guys are. And then all of a sudden something happens with one of the medical reviews on the prospects, and it falls through, right? So apparently the Mariners are like, hey, if that's what you're looking for, we've got a Joaquin Tejada and a Carter Benz for you, right? So very similar return, like you said. I mean, you've basically got a complete lottery ticket pitching prospect and a catching prospect, low-level catching prospect. Carter Benz, real quick, seems like he's kind of destined for a backup catching role, right? It is kind of what it seems. Started off super hot this year in high A ball. Was hitting the ball really well there. Was promoted to AA about 2 weeks ago. So he now slots in, at Altoona for the Pirates. So he was able to play a couple games in Altoona this past week. But again, this system, it's pretty impressive because I know sometimes we make fun of, how we have to get catching prospects and some trades, right? But it is also a real thing that, like, when Ben Cherington took over this organization, like, there was nothing in the pipeline when it came to catchers, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there was absolutely nothing. And now with the drafting of Henry Davis, you've got him. You've got Carter Benz now, who now probably is the team's second best catching prospect.
Well, I mean, there's
third,
also
I guess,
Andy,
between
Andy Rodriguez.
third, but I wasn't counting Davis. So you got Davis, Andy Rodriguez, and now Ben.
Gotcha.
So you actually now have like a legit catcher who has major league potential at, hopefully 3 different levels now, right? if Davis goes to Greensboro. So
Right.
Whereas before there was nothing, right? And catchers are always something you need. I know we all remember, I think it was that 2011 season, where, we used like 8 catchers that year. So we've been kind of lucky the past couple of years that our catchers have stayed relatively healthy, but that's not always going to be the case. Like, you need some catching depth
For sure.
And
actually, I mean, just not to really cut you off here, but like, that's really been surprising to me too. The fact that the Pirates they've had just 2 catchers on the 40-man this year, and that's been it. How lucky have the Pirates been? They have no depth, and so far, find some wood here. They haven't needed it. I mean, both catchers have held up the entire year. That's remarkable.
Yeah, from a catching standpoint, it's been an ideal situation. Like, they've only had to go with those 2.
Yeah, Christian Betancourt's down AAA. Like, what the hell do I got to do to get a call up here?
Yeah, which is incredible. The one thing that that the depth hasn't been flexed on is, the outfield and the infield and the pitching staff, right? That's what they've needed players for, and they're not great. I think we just hit our 52nd player of the year last night. So
yeah,
the record team record's 55. Yeah, team record's 55. So I have a feeling they're gonna break that record. But yeah, 52 players now. And it's insane. But no, I like the deal. Again, this is for 2 months of Tyler Anderson, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've now turned Tyler Anderson. I know there's some valuable innings you could get out of him over these next 2 months, but by trading Anderson, it does a couple things. It opens up a rotation spot for somebody who you can maybe now get some looks at for next year. And then also it brings in some talent. Carter Benz is a potential backup catcher down the road. Joaquin Tejada is, again, a complete lottery ticket. Super young. I think at the time of the trade, he had only pitched like 5 innings ever professionally. So it's hard to really get a gauge on who he is, but the stuff seems really good. Again, he's only 17. He was a pretty top international signing for the Mariners 2 years ago. So, he comes with a little bit of a pedigree. His stuff took a step up last year, after he was signed. So hopefully, I mean, again, that's not a guy that we'll see for a while, but and also no Rule 5 implications on him either. So,
right,
which is refreshing.
Nothing major here, but just a slight correction because I thought so. He actually just turned 18 on July 16th was his birthday. So he turned 18, and the Mariners said, "Take it easy, you're a Pirate now."
Yeah, just turned 18. I see that now. But he already made his first start in the DSL for the Pirates, and his first appearance. Pitched 3 scoreless innings. So
interesting.
And got the win.
Yeah. I mean, again, that trade happened. It was very similar to the Phillies one. My initial thought was I think I like the Phillies package better. The main reason was the Phillies pitcher that was in return. However, as we kind of find out here by the next trade, it seems like that was the pitcher that failed the medicals. So with that being said, okay, cool, get it. Because now let's move forward and we'll both chip in here. Because they whatever I guess happens. It's Friday. The trade deadline's approaching. Here comes the big trades. It's going to be Rodriguez. It's going to be Chris Stratton. Like the house is getting sent. It's kind of quiet. And then, Jim, the Pirates trade a AAA pitcher to the Phillies again. Braden Ogle gets traded to the Phillies for essentially the catcher that was involved in the Phillies trade to begin with, Abraham. Right. Oh god, I'm gonna lose it now.
Abraham. Gutierrez.
Yeah. Yes. So what the hell's going on here? So the Phillies are like, we want Tyler Anderson. That doesn't happen. They're like, okay, well then just send us like whatever AAA pitcher you have, and we'll give you half of that deal. So again, I guess my perspective on this is, so the Pirates traded Clay Holmes. Rich Rodriguez still a Pirate. Pirates trade Clay Holmes first, and then they trade Braden Ogle. Still no Rich Rod. It's those two guys. How do you get a return on these two pitchers?
I mean, Braden Ogle is having a decent year in AAA. He's striking out a lot of batters, but he's also walking just a ton of people, right?
Sure.
So I don't really know what you could expect out of Braden Ogle. I'd probably rather see people like Braden Ogle than, some of these other guys that we trot out. But he was a Rule 5 guy, right? So another thing where maybe the Pirates had just made up their minds that, hey, this guy, we're not protecting him. And, a 24-year-old left-handed reliever who can strike people out, and he may not even get through the Rule 5 draft next year, right? So we might as well try getting something for him.
Mm-hmm.
The Phillies obviously need bullpen depth, so this helps them out in that regard. I know he's probably not going to be in the majors right away for the Phillies, but he's somebody who may be able to help them out down the stretch. It's just a depth move for them. And I think it maybe has a lot to say with, the Pirates may have been scouting the Phillies farm system, and Abraham Gutierrez may be somebody that they kind of keyed in on as someone that, hey, we want this guy in our organization. Right?
Sure.
And especially
that's what kind of stood out to me.
Yeah. And especially with the Phillies, like you've got Raymond Muto locked up for forever. It kind of makes your catching depth a little bit more expendable, if you're looking to improve the organization in other ways. So it's a trade that made sense for both teams, kind of swapping prospects. Ogle was still technically a prospect. Gutierrez, technically a prospect. Again, someone who probably, has the upside of a backup major league catcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that is kind of you like to see about Gutierrez is the walk rate. The guy's getting on base at a 420 clip right now, and A-ball can't be too upset about that. He's also hitting the ball pretty well. It's hard to kind of tell with the Florida State League or whatever they call it now, low A ball, southeast, whatever. But the numbers always kind of a little weird sometimes. But no, I think this is just a guy that they locked in on, that they wanted to acquire, and they just figured out a way to get it done.
Yeah, I'm with you. The fact that they tried to get him, it didn't work out, and then the next day, like they still got him. Like you said, it seems to me like this guy they definitely wanted. So even though these medicals didn't work out and Tyler Anderson didn't work out, Ben's like, but I still want this guy. So how can we do it? And again, to me, I'm just like, so they traded this AAA pitcher that I'm okay with. I'm perfectly okay with it. I mean, I know what you're saying. He's a prospect in a sense, but like at the same time, he kind of really isn't. Not that Gutierrez is either, but I think I find more intriguing stuff out of him than I do with Braden Ogle. So with that being said, again, to me, it just seems like a win. And again, it's just super, super weird. Like Clay Holmes was traded and then Ogle was traded. That was two guys you weren't expecting at all. Of all the list of pitchers like that could go, Rodriguez, Stratton, some other guys you're potentially thinking about, it was those two. So to me, again, it kind of seems like a win. And then another trade happens, which
let's go. One interesting point on Gutierrez though is he's now the second of that 2017 Braves international class that they had to void a bunch of contracts. second one now that has found his way into the Pirates organization, because G1 Bay was part of that.
Right.
Gutierrez now part of that too. Gutierrez was given a $3.5 million bonus in 2017 out of Venezuela, so given a ton of money, and he was actually able to keep it all, which is cool. but
they all won there.
Second player out of that weird Braves offseason that is now in the Pirate system.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Imagine being one of those, prospects that you got picked up by the Braves with way too much money because they just, illegally gave it to you. And then MLB was like, it's your money. You get to keep it and you get to sign again. Yeah, so I think Bay signed, I think, with them for like $3 million as well. I think they signed with the Pirates for $1 million, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, pretty cool for them. Good wins. But now he's a Pirate, like you said, with Bay. Yeah, so I guess kind of pretty cool there. Thank you, Anthropoulos.
Right.
Okay. So yes, now as mentioned, the next day, the next trade, another kind of weird one. So Austin Davis is the next reliever to go because, of course, Austin Davis. So okay, Michael Chavis comes back. Obviously to the Red Sox. Chavis was a Ben Cherington draftee. Was it 2014? If I'm remembering correctly now.
He was a 2014 first round pick. Yep.
Okay. So some familiarity. But Chavis hasn't really performed at all. Especially recently. He's regressed every year. But yes, there's the first round pedigree. There's some familiarity, like I said, if anyone knows him, Ben kind of knows of him. And also, again, with that, it's Austin Davis, so I get the who cares factor. Mm-hmm. So what's your take on this deal here?
So these next two trades that happen before the deadline are just purely, hey, this guy was clearly talented at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Something hasn't clicked yet. Let's see if a change of scenery can be beneficial for these guys. So, so Michael Chavis, I mean, top prospect. He hit like I said, first round pick, hit all the way through the minors, with power. I mean, the guy actually, was hitting with power, in the minors before that was even a thing. Now it seems like everybody hits with power, but makes his debut for the Red Sox in 2019. That was when who's their little second baseman who got hurt?
Now I'm drawing not Brock Holt, not your boy Brock Holt.
No, the guy who damn it. He's like a 10-time All-Star. How did I
know, right?
His name?
Dustin Pedroia.
Dustin Pedroia. So Pedroia goes down. Pedroia goes down in 2019. Chavis comes up. Chavis basically becomes a starting second baseman for the Red Sox for half of the year, and played fairly well. I mean, he hit decent. He hit for some power. He hit 18 home runs in 95 games in 2019. Right. So if you kind of prorate that over the course of a year, you're talking about a second baseman with 25 to 30 home run power. Right. If he's able to continue that. And that was at age 23. Struck out a lot, right? Struck out 33% of the time. He's been over 30% strikeout rates in all of his major league time. So that's a little concerning there. But the guy has power. He's shown he can hit in the past. It just hasn't clicked for him at the major league level. He's someone where, because he doesn't walk very much, in order to be productive, he's going to have to put the ball in play more. Like you can't be a productive major league player and strike out 30% of the time and only walk 5% of the time. It's just not going to work. So there's going to have to be some sort of change to his approach and how he does things. But he was playing okay at AAA this year, not great. Yeah, he seems to be regressing, as you mentioned. So this is just a complete flyer, change of scenery, hoping that it's good for him, because he really hasn't been good since 2019.
Yeah.
I mean,
So right now, listen, in a vacuum, Austin Davis for this guy, that's a clear win. You know, like again, it's
Right.
Austin Davis, right?
Exactly.
I get the, you know, he's got the first round pedigree, he was a top prospect, you know, this and that, but I guess where I stand on this is you already have Cherington's been picking up a bunch of guys. I mean, just talk about the trade with the Yankees, right? And you got there. You got Park. You got Diego Castillo. Like there's talent coming in that's kind of like this cusp. Like let's see what they have. They're all like Rule 5 eligible, and it's like we just add another one to the mix here. And again, like I get the 1-for-1. It's a good deal, but this guy's in AAA now, and I guess we'll get to this a little further down, you know, about the outlook and such. But like, where are these guys going to play? Who do you see that's going to be in the future here? I don't know. To me, this is like a log jam of just mess stuff, and this adds to it. And to me, that was a little bit confusing. So, I mean, again, it's Austin Davis, but why not just a younger prospect or a flyer? I don't know. Like, I'll get here further because there's one more trade we want to talk about, but like, this deadline to me was kind of confusing. If that makes sense.
I think with this, it was just a matter of, hey, maybe the Red Sox were looking to part ways with Chavis.
Yeah.
Cherington is familiar with him, had a little bit of interest in him. Maybe they see something in him that they say, hey, you know what? Maybe we can tap back into what he had before. It's one of those things where if it works out, it's awesome, right?
Sure.
And if it doesn't work out, like who cares? It's Austin Davis, like you mentioned.
Right.
So it's one of those like high risk, low reward, high.
There's like no risk.
Reward, low risk type of deals. There's absolutely no risk in this. So I'm fine with the trade. I think I don't think Michael Chavis is good anymore. You know, but he clearly has, you know, some power. You know, he has that tool. He's versatile. He can play a couple different positions around the field, which is another you know, attribute that I feel like is with a lot of these guys that they acquired. So he can play multiple positions. I just don't really know where he fits in on this team, really. But again, like we mentioned, they traded a 28-year-old Austin Davis for him, who clearly I'm surprised they got anybody for Austin Davis, right? So
right.
Again, if it works out, cool. If it doesn't, no big deal.
Okay. And then the last trade we'll touch on before we talk about, you know, everything encompassing it all. But so Rich Rod finally gets dealt, which at first we thought he wasn't. The deadline passed, and you heard how he was still with the club. He was walking out with the teammates. It wasn't done. And then I think it was like at 4:27-ish or something like that. It was like, Rich Rod was dealt to the Braves. The return, which we actually saw part of it last night. So Bryce Wilson, Ricky DeVito. I don't think these were the names that you're expecting in a Rich Rod return. Not to say, now, again, let's temper things back. Rich Rod, kind of like with the Adam Frazier thing, it's not like he was returning some top 100 type of prospect, right? But these really aren't prospects anymore either, you know? Not to say like Michael Chavis level, but Bryce Wilson's been in the majors. He's struggled. What was a prospect at one point, but he's been in the majors. He struggled. He comes on over. So, of course, the club needs arms, needs pitching. Here's a young pitcher. But kind of, again, it's a guy who's struggled. And this was Rich Rod. Like, this was, if you look at the chips that this team had, it was Rich Rod and Adam Frazier. So give me your take on this.
So I will say this. I feel like I'm I'm a little bit higher on Bryce Wilson than I think a lot of people were. I think Bryce Wilson could be a third or fourth starter in the major leagues. Like I really do. And I think the main reason is, yeah, he's kind of been up and down a little bit, but like we're not talking about, someone who's been up and down and he's now 25 or 26 years old. Like he's 23 years old right now. He's still pretty young. If you kind of compare him to say Mitch Keller, who kind of has been up and down for a couple of years, right? Mitch Keller's 25. Mitch Keller's 2 years older than Bryce Wilson, right? And Bryce Wilson already has 15 major league starts. Actually, his 15th major league start was last night. Bryce Wilson also pitched in an NLCS game, started an NLCS game last year and performed amazing in it. So I love this deal, actually. Like when I first saw it, I was like, I don't know, but I love this deal. Richard Rodriguez, he is a right-handed relief pitcher. Most teams he would not be the closer on, right? He obviously has performed well at times throughout his career. But I mean, if you look at Richard Rodriguez throughout his time with the Pirates, he's pretty much been the same guy. What he is. He's a good right-handed relief pitcher. Like,
yep,
not knocking him at all. But the Pirates were able to turn him into Bryce Wilson, who has some upside. I said, I think Bryce Wilson, as like a minimum, is like a fifth starter in the major leagues. Like I think he is a starting pitcher. He's a major league starting pitcher. So not only so you just traded a reliever for a starter, right? I don't know. I see more in Bryce Wilson than say like Will Crow, things like that. I like this move. I like this move. And I think once you kind of, and they talked about on the broadcast a little bit last night, right? I mean, there was a span during this year where he had 6 starts and he alternated between majors, AAA, majors, AAA, majors, AAA, right? So I think maybe just getting him some stability and say, hey, you are in the starting rotation, go at it, right? I mean, he had some success last year. He wasn't terrible last year. And again, the Braves trusted him enough to throw him out in an NLCS game last year. That's how much they thought of him. And he wasn't doing poorly this year.
Not to poo-poo so much on that. 'Cause, I mean, you are correct to a degree, but also at the same time, like, did the Braves really have that many options last year either?
No, but I mean, this is a guy he was on a playoff team, and he was good enough to start an NLCS game. I mean, that's essentially what it came down to. He was a starting pitcher on an NLCS team. So I think this is someone who we're kind of overlooking a little bit. Like I legit think Bryce Wilson could be a part of this rotation for the next 5 years.
So this is where the things confuse me. Okay. And so obviously, like we said with the Chavis thing, he just adds to this mix of just players that probably aren't going to be here, right? But again, it's Austin Davis, so that, like, who cares to that degree? And then with this trade here with Richard Rodriguez, I don't know. I understand where you're coming from with Bryce Wilson, and obviously he was a top prospect for a reason. With that being said, scouting must have saw something, I assume too. But I mean, I'm definitely worried on him. I mean, the Ks are down, the walks are up. Not that the walks are terrible by any. I'm not going to say like the walks are actually in line. They're okay. I mean, they are up. You would expect that obviously as it goes and increases through the minors and the majors and such. But like the Ks are really down too. Home runs are there. Yeah, he's been up and down. They talked about that on the broadcast last night, and I'm sure like mentally that's a thing. That's clearly a thing. But I'm a little worried on this. And it's like, so now I want to talk about like kind of encompassing the entire trade deadline. So the Adam Frazier trade was made first. You were kind of down on it. I was. Tyler was as well. I think all of us just kind of agreed. Hey, apparently Ben's going after this kid. He wants him. He got him. Trust Ben, right? But the thing about that deal, I think I brought up a little bit, was it kind of looked like, okay, like he's close, right? So 2020, they took Henry Davis, right? He's close. Maybe 2023 is like this realistic like window and time frame to looking at. And like all these deals here too. So I wasn't thinking about the Adam Frazier trade as being completely terrible. It is what it is. He's not going to bring us huge return back. But I think like now, after seeing the trade deadline come and go and seeing like what other teams are able to do, now I kind of revisit some of these deals. And now when I look at them, I'm kind of taken back and saying why and how, like when the team with like when the Rangers looked at this, and not to say obviously Gibson is better than Tyler Anderson, especially the year he's having. But it's like when the Rangers went and packaged a few things, right? They had kind of like what the Pirates could have done with Tyler Anderson and Rich Rod, right? They could have packaged this, Ian Kennedy and Gibson. They packaged some things together to send to Philly for a better quality prospect. Whereas Cherington seemed to still go individual for like this group of players. And then on the other side, some of these group of players were, to a degree, like the Neil Huntington MO. Like they're close, they're here, but there's not a whole lot of upside to them. And that's what kind of made me down on this deadline. At first, with the Adam Frazier deal, kind of understanding the landscape and the way the landscape has been, I was like, well, okay, but teams are willing to trade prospects this deadline. We saw it. Now, they didn't have it. Like, the Pirates don't have a Trey Turner or Max Scherzer. I get that. But teams were willing to trade prospects, and I don't think Cherington capitalized on that as well. That's, I think, where I'm down at.
And I think that's a legit argument there. A lot of the guys that they did get back in these trades are either major league ready or getting close to it, and that is something that we haven't seen out of Cherington yet. Most of the people that he's been getting are lower level guys, and he picked up a few of those. But yeah, for the most part, these are a little bit older prospects. I don't really know what, maybe he just wasn't offered, that for certain people, and maybe he was trying in the terms of the Adam Frazier deal. We've talked about that already, but I think that just came down to, it seems like he really likes Marcano, right?
It does.
So he was kind of like, that was his guy. That's who he likes. And that's who he wanted.
I'll say Haunt is too much. Yeah. Haunt's overboard here, but something that's going to always be on my mind is, what were those other deals? Dying to know, to understand that mindset, because those are my questions. If one of those deals was like, here's one player, he is maybe not a top 100, but he's number 115 on prospect list, something like that. This is a guy who's close, but it's one player. Did he turn that down to go to this package?
Right.
That's forever going to bother me until I know, and I won't.
Yeah, and that's something we might never know, right?
Yeah.
It's just, again, I don't like players like Marcano. He clearly sees something in him that I don't. So he does it for a living. I don't. We'll see what happens. But I also kind of looked at this as, we had some major league pieces that we had to trade, but at the same time, we still have 2 months to play in this season, right? Especially from like the starting pitching. Like, I think acquiring someone like Bryce Wilson was very important, because you still have to, like, we have to play 60 more games. Like, somebody's got to pitch those games. And with Tyler Anderson gone, who was by far your best innings eater, and it wasn't even close, right? Like you needed to have something to kind of step into there to take up some innings. And I don't know I mean, if you look at the rotation without Bryce Wilson, I mean, it gets kind of scary. Bryce Wilson kind of stabilizes it a little bit, right? As someone who has shown that he can do it from time to time. So I think that was also important to get that. And again, he went into this year with under a year of control. So I mean, the guy's not a free agent until 2026, right? So you've got him for quite some time. And I think he's a high floor guy. Maybe not a ton of upside, but I think he could be good. And again, he's still young. Like I think if we're just kind of looking at the deadline as a whole, he kind of addressed a few needs. He added some catching depth. He added someone who can eat innings into this rotation with Bryce Wilson and in the future, right? And then he added just like this hodgepodge of middle infielders who can play a lot of positions and be versatile. And I guess you just kind of hope that one of those guys really sticks and becomes someone who can help out the team in the future down the road. So he definitely acquired a lot of those guys, right? Castillo, Park, Chavis, Marcano, right? So he's got like all these guys now between AA and AAA who are like very similar type players. And yeah, I mean, he just needs like one or two to stick for it to work. But yeah, I wasn't like overly impressed with the deadline in general, but I also wasn't like I'm not disappointed with it. I don't really know what you could have reasonably, I don't know what you could have reasonably expected him to get more of, and without seeing what else was on the table.
I think that's probably the best way of putting it, because I don't look at it and say this was terrible when he blew this. But by no means, I mean, especially coming off the excitement of the draft,
Mm-hmm.
And then this was just kind of, like I said, to me, puzzling. It's not that I looked at it and said, well, this was a terrible deadline. They're clear losers, but I didn't come out of this thinking like, well, Cherington really, really did it again. I looked at this and said, I'm just kind of indifferent. I'm not excited about it. I'm not completely disappointed about it either. But I think most of that is the fact of trusting in him, trusting that what he saw in these guys, there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
But, hey, in 3 years, we might have a completely different story. It depends on what happens. And that's the big part of all this. But so talking about that hodgepodge of players. So let's take a look at his outlook, right? The rest of the year. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of decisions. We've talked and joked a little bit about the Rule 5 situation that's coming up. There's a lot of players that are going to have to decide on what to do. So right now, I understand it's coming right off the deadline. Not everyone's totally where they need to be. But so Park was, I think, we'll start there. Park was the first. I mean, he's got the call. Well, Castro, of course, obviously got the first, I guess. Castro's up in the big leagues now, took over Adam Frazier's spot at second. And then Park gets traded. Park gets the call. Some excitement. Park made one start. He's been there for 3 games. Like, yes, you talked about Chavis. Chavis is in AAA right now. Okay, that doesn't really help us going forward. So what do the Pirates need to do right now, and who needs to be playing right now?
I will say this. So there are 2 people who just I don't want to see ever again. Okay.
Toss them into the sun.
And that's Kevin Newman and Phillip Evans. I don't want to see them ever again take another at bat, right? So, who do we get to see instead? I like that Castro's back up. I think clearly, we want to see more of Rodolfo Castro. He's really just done nothing but be impressive.
First 5 hits, MLB record, all home runs,
Yeah, I mean, he had another good night last night. I think he had 2 hits last night. Got on base again with a hit by pitch. So, he's showing that he at least isn't overwhelmed by major league pitching. He's he's been pretty good.
And even the outs as well that he makes are like to the warning track.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and he kind of fits that mold of someone who he's versatile. He can play a lot of positions. So if somebody needs an off day, he can spell them and play a couple positions. So I definitely want to see more of Castro. At first, the quote from Cherington, it sounded like we weren't going to see more of Castro, but I think we are. I don't know how you just can be like, hey, you're going back down after he's been one of the better performers on the team.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. And you're alluding to his quote of, we looked at this as his AA year. And assuming that he was going to stay in AA this year. Yeah, I'm with you. I heard that. I was like, oh, damn. But then right away, he's up. So hopefully he's here to stay.
So I want to see more of Castro. I wouldn't mind seeing Park get some significant playing time, right? Especially with the way his age is, right? He in particular, being 25 years old, you need to kind of get an idea of what you've got there. Is this somebody who's just destined to be in AAA and bounce up and down and be depth, or do you actually have a legit major leaguer here? So I feel like Park should be playing almost every day just to get those at bats in and then see what you have. I'd like to see Chavis, unless there's something in particular that like they found with him and they want him to work on first, before coming up. So I whatever it is with him, I'd like to see him though. But Park in particular, like, needs to be getting almost everyday playing time. I mean, I just don't see why you wouldn't do that. As far as pitching goes, obviously Bryce Wilson slots into the rotation, pitch him every day.
Well, not every day, maybe every 5.
Every 5 days sounds good. Yeah.
Can we not already kill this guy? We just got him.
Yeah, we don't. I guess every day is pushing it a little bit too much. But I think, I mean, unless I'm missing somebody, I think those are the main guys who I want to see. Again, I think the most important here is Park, because you're gonna have to make a decision on this 40-man roster next year, right? Independent, there's gonna be a lot of legit prospects that you need to protect, and so you've got to figure out, okay, who do I want to continue having in this organization? Who do I not? Right. And so next year, Hoy Park's going to be 26, right? So a 26-year-old Park, do you keep him or do you not keep him? Right. And I think you've got to give him significant playing time these next 2 months to basically show you what you should do with him. If he performs, keep him. If he doesn't, then you can cut him loose. Right. Because as we mentioned, we have a lot of players in that same mold. Tugupita Marcano, I'm okay with leaving in AAA, right? So I don't know if he was really ready for Major League Baseball earlier this year. I don't foresee him coming up at any point in time. Maybe in September when they increase the rosters by 2 people, I think is what they're doing.
Is it 2 or
up to 28?
3?
Yeah, I think it's 28 or maybe 29. I'm not exactly sure, but
either way, okay. But yeah, you're right. That makes sense. Possibly then
Marcano stays in the minors, in my opinion. So yeah, and those are my big 3, I guess. I want to see Castro, I want to see Park, I want to see Chavis, and I want to see Wilson. So 4 people.
I'm with you. I think that's reasonable. And you hit the nail on the head there too with Park. Like, I think he, more than anyone, because I mean, Castro to a degree, I guess we don't know what he is, but you have some expectations for him. Like, he's going to be a Pirate. You're going to keep him. You're not going to not keep Castro, right? But like with Park, I think is a huge decision because this year has kind of been the anomaly with him. Like, that's why he's so intriguing in that deal, because he's just like he's hitting anything. He's like the best hitter in minor leagues, basically,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so what is he? Is this for real, or is it just some fluke and he's just beating up on some little kids in AAA? And that's why I think it's so important for him to get at bats, because I need to find out, if I'm Ben Cherington, I need to find out what he can do in the major leagues at this level, because I got a big decision to make in 2 months. But then again, as mentioned, like, so he's on the club, and for 3 games right now he has 1 start. So that bothers me. So just like you said, I mean, like, why does he have 1 start? Well, who got the start last night? Like Phillip Evans, and he, like the Evans train is over. I know you and I were having a fun time with a Thrill Up ride, but I think it's completely shut down at this point. It was fun. He was he was that guy where, of course, this is a rebuilding club. Man, I need some water. Hold on. All right. So this was a rebuilding club, and he like fit that mold. He's that flyer. He was that, not the same pedigree, but that Chavis back in the day. It's like, you can afford to have these guys on here. Whose spot are you risking? No one. So let's bring these guys on. Let's play with them. Let's see what they can do. Well, he's turned into finding out that he can't do it. He's just not that guy anymore. So Phillip Evans is gone. I mean, personally speaking, with Kevin Newman, I'm like perplexed, because like, are they going to have the balls to do it? Kevin Newman's proven to us, I think, time and time again, like, it just ain't there. But it's so weird on how he's so bad. Like, how the guy doesn't strike out. The guy has speed, and yet he's like the worst hitter. He can't get a hit. It's so perplexing on how can this profile be this terrible? Again, if he was striking out 30% of the time, I get it. But he doesn't. Like, he hits the ball all the time. So how can you always like just be that terrible of a hitter? But it's not as if 2020 is showing he was a fluke. I mean, here we are again. We're now into August of 2021. We have a clear, huge sample size. This is what Kevin Newman has turned into being. And now, not only did we have, the Pegueros and the Gonzaleses and all the middle infielders that we've had, but now like Cherington has added and brought in even more. Is Kevin Newman the future? I don't think so. Does Kevin Newman have any trade value? Well, the trade deadline came and went. Do you try to keep him for another year and hope something comes out? I don't know. I don't know if they have the balls, but if it happened, I'd be quite okay with it, because I'm with you. Like, we need to see I need to see Park. I don't need to see Newman. That's where we're at this point in time. Right. But let's talk about also another one. Gregory Polanco. We kind of discussed this a little bit last week. I want to kind of discuss it with you here as well. Now, of course, he's playing hot. like he comes back from his injury, and he's just like, doing his Gregory Polanco stunt, where, like I jokingly said, at the end of the year, he's going to have a 98 weighted run created plus. He's going to have 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases. And you look back and say, is it Polanco season again? Like, do you look into re-signing him, restructuring that deal? Is it time to just say, let's cut the cord, regardless of how well you're playing? Let's cut the cord on Gregory Polanco, because we need to have Park. We need to have Chavis. We need these guys here to find out what they are. Or do you just keep Polanco because he's the clubhouse guy and he is performing right now?
I don't think you can reasonably. So let me start off by saying that's probably it. Both of those things make sense, right? Like I can understand a move from a business standpoint that says, hey, you know what, we've got other guys who need looks. You're taking up a lot of plate appearances. You're not in our future next year, so bye, right? Thank you for your service. Good luck next year, right?
Right.
I could understand that move. I
the
think
next
part of me
though, go ahead.
Part of me though is like, this is still like, it's still sports. Like, it's still sports, and there's still competition involved. And if you all of a sudden take who is arguably maybe your third best player at the current moment, right? And Gregory Polanco, you could argue that.
Could be second.
Maybe, yeah. If you take somebody who's actually performing and say, hey, you know what, bye later, I just don't know if that really sends a good message to the rest of the clubhouse. Like, hey, apparently you can play well and not even, and they'll just let you go just because.
Right.
Just cause, you know.
Right.
So I think there's still a level of competition that needs to be had. You know, be like, hey, if you want playing time, right field's open. You can take it, right? You're just gonna have to play better than Gregory Polanco. I'm cool with that right there. And I don't have any interest in restructuring a Gregory Polanco deal and bringing him back. So let me say that right up.
I think we all knew. I think everyone listening to this knew.
Zero interest in Gregory Polanco being a Pirate in 2022. But at the same time, if you've got a guy who's hitting and playing well over the last month, I just don't. I don't like the message it sends as a professional sports team that says, "Hey, you know what? Later." Right.
You're absolutely
now,
correct.
If Gregory Polanco goes into a slump and he goes into this 2 for 40 slide over the next 2 weeks, later, you know what? I'm fine with that. But I don't think you do it while he's playing well. It doesn't. No.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because that's exactly how I feel too. You know, in a sense, it's almost like Polanco screwing this up again by playing well though instead this time. Because theoretically, you would have looked at this deadline, you know, it came and go. Polanco's not going to get traded. And then you would just easily make the decision that, well, we just DFA him. It's done. I would have been okay with that. Perfectly okay. DFA Gregory Polanco, get these guys to slide up. But that's the caveat. Just as you mentioned, that's the issue here. He is playing well. And you're right. So to look at this as a business decision, that'd be a correct move to make. But that's such a terrible message to send to your clubhouse. Such a terrible message. Because like you said, he is playing well. And then for him to come in and just say, you're gone. Like, that's such a loser mentality. That's terrible. Here's a guy who's hot. He's playing well. Regardless, like you said, so for the people who are talking about them actively tanking last year as well, right? They're not. Because no one wants to lose. No one wants to do that. You're out there to play. You're out there to perform. You want to win. Gregory Polanco just goes. I mean, everyone's going to look around and say, what the hell just happened? And now you're trusting your management? You know, like you just toss this guy into the sun. He's been hitting 350 now since he came back. You know, he's been doing this XYZ since he came back. You know, he's the reason why we're playing as well as we are since he's come back. You know, and now you just like let him go. You know, and then meanwhile, there's Kevin Newman who can't hit anything, and he's starting every single day. So you're right. The message there would be very, very bad. But what I'll say to that is if you're keeping Gregory Polanco as he's playing, like I'm all about earning play time and stuff too. Kevin Newman does not even make a start. Even if you decide not to DFA Kevin Newman, he cannot be playing shortstop every day. What has he earned? Nothing. I know to this point, there's been no one there to take it away from him. It's not that there's depth, but if you have Park there now, like there's no reason that Kevin Newman is deserving of this playtime. Get Park in there. If anything, put some pressure under Kevin Newman to have to perform. I've said it jokingly the few times he's gotten hits that, you know, he sees that Cherington's brought all these middle infielders, you know, he's got to perform now. Like, do something. Like, he can't just be taking starts every single day and not providing any type of value. He hurts the club every time he goes to the plate.
Right. I mean, we all knew last year was bad for him, and he's been worse. Like he's been worse this. Like
that's what's crazy.
and he's not really showing. I was kind of joking about him hitting the other day, but he really isn't showing any forms of life. Like nothing's changing. His defense is really the only reason why I feel like he's even still on this roster. But yeah, I mean, at what point? It's not like he's young anymore. He's actually. His birthday's tomorrow. His 28th birthday is tomorrow. So Like you've got this 28-year-old shortstop who just can't hit at all.
And
There's
that
just no
was
reason
your
to play him
only
anymore.
calling card. That was
There's just
it.
there's no reason to play him anymore. Like none whatsoever. He really shouldn't be on the team anymore. Like he should be gone.
That's harsh words, but again, I get it, and I'm with you. I find more intrigue in Park than I do Kevin Newman. Kevin Newman to me is, even if he, like, listen, here's where we're at. If Kevin Newman improves twofold, he's still not an average league average hitter.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Like, Kevin Newman's been so bad since the beginning of last year that, like, at what level, like, even if he does improve, he's still a terrible hitter. I'm done. Let's see what Park has. That's where we're at. Park's probably, here's the thing, chances are Park's probably not going to be the answer either. Chances are Park's not going to be a good major leaguer. But here's 2 months to start finding out. Let's start finding out. Because then you have more decisions to make next year. I mean, the thing is, like, there's not like there's a ton of good depth in the middle infield that's close right now, right? Like next year.
Right.
But it's coming. And you got to find out what these guys can do before that next crop comes through. So Kevin Newman's not it. Let's find out what Park is. And you found 2 months he's not it, he's out. Next man up.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah. I would be fine if we never saw Kevin Newman again.
All right. So there's the moves. Yeah. Evans has to go. And I'm with you, Newman. And then eventually, if Polanco does start to struggle, he's probably next too. And Tom, whatever happens with him, like, he just should never come back from the IL either.
Yeah.
Like, Tom's also gone. He just has an excuse right now.
Right. Yeah, Tom's an interesting one because it's like, hey, if you can keep him another 7 weeks, you have him in your organization. But
on the IL.
Do we necessarily want him in the organization?
No. There's clearly better. As terrible as the outfield options are, there's clearly better options. Plus, Swaggerty will be back next year, hopefully. What level of health we'll find out, but he'll be back.
Yeah, right. And it's not like Kai Tom's a spring chicken either. Like he's 27.
Right. And I mean, truth be told, if we're still going to choose, I would still choose Alford over him. Which doesn't say much because I don't think much of Alford. So, but at least he's performing in AAA, which I don't think anyone's too surprised on.
Yeah, I mean he's always hitting the minors, I feel like.
All right. So I guess anything else you want to talk here or wrap up with?
I would just like, I mean, brace yourself for the next 2 months. It looks like this team, especially the bullpen, is pretty bad.
We had an over and under last night of what?
Yeah.
The rest of the season of 5.5 ERA for the bullpen.
5.5 ERA for the bullpen. I think that's going to be. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Off to a magnificent start if you pick the over.
Yeah, they are not good. Not good. And just because you're moving Rodriguez, because you're moving even Holmes to an extent, right? Everybody just kind of has to move into a different role. You have to add more depth in there, and the depth just isn't major league caliber.
Right. And as we saw too, that the bullpen wasn't that good to begin with either. So it's only gotten much worse.
No. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's going to be interesting these next 2 months. The show's going to be, I don't know. Like the thing about this team, we always jokingly said, well, not so much jokingly as like making fun of them. It was the truth. As bad as this team is, it's been very interesting. They've they've been fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you're right, especially if we still have Kevin. I mean, I don't know if they actually make the right decisions and clear house, and we have these young kids play, even though they'll be bad, at least you get to watch them. But like, I feel like we're now closer to this 2020 season where it was like, oh God, like you said, you made your Del Pozo tweet last night. You know, it's like I feel like we're much closer now to the 2020 season where it's going to be harder to watch, opposed to, well, they're going to lose, but they're fun. They battle, you know. Even though last night, like somehow or another,
It was hard. It was really hard to watch the last 3 innings last night.
See, I felt it was, but that last half inning was kind of fun.
That was. Oh, you're right. The last.
I mean, just because like the Brewers are really about to lose this. Are you kidding me?
Mm.
And then Newman and the 2 DFA candidates, Newman and Evans, just decided to not do anything with the bases loaded. So no runs for them. Yep. So brace yourself. But the thing I will say is, especially at this draft deadline, whatever, like I feel like excitement is coming. I think it's coming closer than many anticipated a year ago. Is that fair?
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully. I think there are definitely interesting pieces still. Oh, there's a lot more non-interesting pieces now than there were before. But yeah, hopefully we can get some of these guys up to the majors soon who we acquired. And like I said, I think just the rest of this month needs to be like a 2-month spring training almost, where you got guys competing for 40-man roster spots.
So top 2 pick?
I don't know.
Over
I don't
or
think
under?
Let me look at the standings real quick. I don't think they can reach number 1. Right? I think they're too far ahead of the Diamondbacks to accomplish that. But yeah, top 2 certainly in play. Baltimore's been hot. Texas they've won 3 in a row. So you know what? Top 2. Definitely in play.
I think so too. I'm with you with Arizona just being way, way far out. But I guess if there's going to be a positive to the negative, right? You're going to watch all this bad baseball. I'm with you. Like, however I don't know how you want to look at it, but if that's going to be a positive for you, the Pirates could end up with the number 2 pick next year. I think for sure. I mean, top 3, top 4 is a lock, but they might.
I think top 4 is a lock,
but they might.
Yeah,
it might be the number 2 pick next year. So there's that, I guess, and then we get to do this all over again.
Exactly.
All right, let's get out of here then. Appreciate you all for listening. We'll be back again this Thursday. Is there a Thursday game? I didn't double check.
I believe there is.
If so, it'll be after the game, of course. If not, 9:00 with all 3 of us once again. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
See you guys.